All right, everybody, welcome to this Wednesday's session of Sales Club. Today's session, I'm going to go over 7 different techniques when we talk about pattern interrupt. So if you remember when I did the success triangle, we talk about, do you have the right actions? All right. And do you have the right feelings? In other words, behaviors and attitude. And then the third tip of the triangle that we talk about success is having the right skills. So if you have the right skills and you do the right behaviors, your attitude will follow. Because if you think about it, wow, I did what I said I was supposed to do. I used the techniques I've learned to implement those behaviors. And so my attitude's great. I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm not some guy who lives in a van down by the river. If anybody gets that reference to, I'm not a motivational speaker because I think motivational speaking lasts about as long as it takes you to get to your car in the parking lot. Because I love Zig Ziglar, and not to name drop, but if you've ever listened to Zig Ziglar, Zig's one of the best motivational speakers. He finishes every one of his speeches with the same tagline, and I'll see you at the top. And I knew him well. I actually would have lunch with him at the Preston Mall in Dallas, North Dallas, Texas, and his stuff was fantastic. But I had to continually listen to it because it would give me a high, it would make me feel good, at almost a little endorphin spurge, if you will. But then it would wane after a while. So what we teach is more of I consider myself more of a behaviorist. My job is to change human behavior, whether it's from helping you understand and doing the right behaviors, we're learning the right techniques. My job really isn't to say I'm here to pump you up. You just got to have a positive mental attitude. If you're doing the right behaviors and have the right skills, you'll have a really good attitude. So today is about a skills session that we're going to talk about pattern interrupt. And it is really a way to alter a person's mental, emotional, or behavioral state to really break those typical patterns that sometimes prospects give you. The
Mhm.
prospect is ready to say, TIO, I'd like to think it over. Or the prospect's ready to think, this sounds good. Give me a couple of days, or even things as simple as I'm not interested. And the story that I use in that one situation is um, when I was a 12-year-old boy, I hated when the back to school commercials would come on TV in August. Not because it reminded me the summer was soon over and I have to go back to school, but for me, it was that my mom would soon be coming up to me and saying, "Come on, Wayne, we have to go to the store. We have to go shopping for clothes for you." Now, ladies, I'm not sure if you get this, but for a 12-year-old boy, that is torture, having to go shopping with his mom.
It was
Because my
torture
mom
for me too, by the way. I
was it.
hate shopping.
I love to buy. All right. I love to go to Cabela's or Bass Pro Shop and buy things, but I hate shopping process. But mama dragged me to the store. Come on, no, we're just going to buy you 2 new pairs of pants, 2 new shoes, and some, get you ready for school. So she drags me to the clothing store with this thought we're supposedly buying something. But when the salesman walked up to her, his mom's looking at the rack of different clothes, the salesman would say, "Can I help you?" And my mom was conditioned to say, "What? No, thanks, just looking." Right? How many times have you really said that to a salesperson? Really, you had nothing better to do. You're just walking around looking. Maybe some people, but she told me we were buying. So sometimes when a prospect says something to you, it is just a conditioned response. It's not necessarily really what's going on. They've just been conditioned. And the pattern interrupt is an unexpected statement, action that jolts them into another state of mind instead of defaulting to the typical, no thanks, I'm just looking kind of thought process. So I'm going to take these down. There we go. All right. All right. So again, really the pattern interrupt, it originates from neuro-linguistic programming and language, which neuro-linguistic language and programming is words, tone, body language, but it is recognizes certain unwanted patterns. And we talked last week about patterns, about pattern of 3, and that our mind is conditioned to take things in 3. But there are certain patterns that we all fall into as a prospect or as a buyer, but a pattern interrupt is designed to interrupt it and leads to the behavior that you want as a salesperson this prospect to have. Psychologists use pattern interrupt to break people out of unwanted or unconscious responses that they've developed over time. So instead of zoning out on the couch immediately after work, for example, you grab your gym shoes and go for a walk. That's a pattern interrupt. You're interrupting your typical pattern of behavior. So, there's various ways to initiate it, and one involves visualizing a cue, such as scrolling social media on your phone, or, when you wake up immediately, imagine what it'd be like to switch to the desired response, that positive thought process. And while this method of pattern interrupt is helpful for breaking lifelong habits, salespeople need techniques that are more immediate and impactful to make prospects receptive to either your pitch or what it is that you're trying to solve, whatever pain it is. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, some 7 different ways of learning the skill for pattern interrupt. And in sales, we all know that frustration of either unanswered emails, unresponsive leads. I mean, every one of us has probably got somebody that you've made some type of a presentation to, but now they're not responding to your emails and not answering your voicemails. And you've managed, this personal bias instantly thinking that, oh my God, that person's rejecting me, or that person doesn't want to buy my product or service, because you immediately think that the pattern you've gone into is because they're not responding to you, that it's a no. So pattern interrupt, it's likely that more than 40% of salespeople agree that prospecting is the most challenging part of the sales process. But pattern interrupt is a great technique to have on hand to move this prospect along down the pain funnel. And it gives you the chance to stop somebody from automatically saying no when it really isn't a no, but that was the conditioned response, and create space for a different response. So I'm going to give you a couple of different examples as we get there. But what I caution you, a pattern interrupt, we talk about critical parent. It can't come across as critical. It's got to be kind of nurturing, but it's just a different way of approaching something. Ultimately, the goal is to create a positive interaction that really shakes up a person's normal routine. But like all sales techniques, again, there's a time and a place to use it. Sometimes when we do a technique training, one kind of emphasizes it in all of the approaches or conversation you have with prospects for the next 7 days. And you probably sometimes shouldn't, just because we did training on it, maybe that wasn't the right time. So my job is to give you the technique, but you kind of decide when and how to use it. So I'm going to give you an example here of an email. This is a situation where I had a prospect who did presentation, no matter what I did, I got to think it over, but then he didn't respond to any of my emails. He didn't respond to my voicemails. I mean, a couple of weeks went by when I didn't hear anything. So I'm going to read to you the type of letter I use. This is the go for the no letter, I call it. And the first sentence is, hey, Mr. Anthony, we had several good conversations, but usually when we get to this point in the relationship, one of several things is going on. Now, I don't have to explain to him, hey, you're dodging me. He knows that he's not following me. All right. So the subject line is important too. So the subject line is close the channel partner file, question mark. So that got him to at least open my email because he saw the subject line. But again, the first line is typically we do this, say, hey, we've had good conversations. But usually when we get to this point in the relationship, one of 3 or 4 things is going on. One, for technical reasons, you didn't receive my email or my calls for some reason. Could be, right? Circumstances have changed that I'm not aware of, which have held you back from replying to my calls and emails. 3, you've decided not to engage with Data Wrangler by Clockworks, and I should have another electrical partner to look for in the region. And it's okay to tell me no. Remember, we've done in our system, we've already gone for the no already. It's either yes, no, or clearly defined next step. I don't want to bother you. I don't want to be a pest is sometimes what I also use if you don't have an interest. 4, you've just been absolutely so busy with other issues that this matter just has not been a priority. Could you do me a personal favor and let me know which one of the above applies, or if there's another? If I don't hear from you within 72 hours, I'll assume you want me to close the file for now and look for another electrical partner in the Denver area. I did find an electrical vendor in California. So that's the email where, again, if you think about if somebody's dodging you, they're not returning your voicemail, they haven't said no. What's going on is one, they've decided to go somewhere else, so just having a hard time telling you no. And you might as well close the file if they tell you that. Two, circumstances change that you're not aware of. Perhaps they're waiting for budgeting. Perhaps they're waiting for money to come from another source. They don't want to have to tell you that. They just hope that you keep pestering them. All right. Um, they just, you didn't show them how your product or service can solve their problem at a price they could afford, or they've actually been just so busy this isn't a priority. When somebody says, oh, I just been absolutely so busy, what you're really telling me is this isn't a priority. You're not that busy, you can't take a couple minutes to return a phone call. Off the record, I had somebody the other day that said, oh, I'm so busy, I haven't been able to return your phone call, but went on to take about, it took me 3 minutes to read the email that this person typed up. In that amount of time, they could have called me. So again, the next line is after you give the 3 reasons or 4 reasons why you think this person hasn't responded, you're showing them where the exit ramp is. And you say, could you do me a personal favor? Remember, you bonded with this person. That's why you want to use the verbiage. Could you do me a personal favor and let me know which of the above applies, or if it's another reason. If I don't hear from you within 72 hours, that's plenty of time for them to open up your email, read it, respond. I'll assume you want me to close the file. Okay. Now, this letter works. If you try it for anybody to have, just try and follow my template here, because this really works. About 75% of the time I get a response. So the response I got from Mike was, sorry, Wayne, it's been very busy and I've not had time to really look at this. So honestly, it's number 4. I'm in and out next week, but could possibly meet if needed. I'll take a closer look at the agreement. Sorry, didn't have any recommendations in the California opportunity. I completely understand if you need to move on. Thanks. And I was able to then call them, say, hey, I just got your email. Hey, we should have another meeting. So this is the pattern interrupt. It's completely different than what they think. Most people, when somebody doesn't respond to them, what they tend to do is throw more benefits and features. Oh, or they try and discount. You haven't responded. What if I offered you a 10% discount? They try and do typical sales, type of techniques, where the pattern interrupt is a little bit different. So again, if anybody wants any help with somebody that, you've had a presentation to, they're not responding, they haven't said no. The reason they haven't said no is because they might still be shopping and they want to be able to come back to you if they don't find a better price or service somewhere else. And that's okay, but you want to be able to have the opportunity to at least have a conversation with them if they're still shopping. So this works. I'm telling you, this one works. Okay. But a poorly timed pattern interrupt can make person you're talking with shut down. One of them, some of you might have seen, I don't know if anybody who's ever seen this one. It's a technique I'm not a fan of. It's an email that says, boy, you must have been eaten by an alligator. That's the subject line. And then the idea is it's a pattern interrupt, something completely different. You must have been eaten by an alligator because I can't imagine why you wouldn't return my phone calls. The problem with that is, what if that person actually had some type of illness, had an accident, and you've made light of it by saying you must have been eaten by an alligator? So I'm not a real fan of that one. That came out from Anthony Pernelli and some of the other ones about 2006, 2007. And you started to see it quite a bit of times in examples. I'm not a fan of that one. That's what I mean by poorly timed, or one that isn't worded correctly. But again, if it is timed correctly, a pattern interrupt can spark a meaningful interaction, just like the previous slide I showed you with Mike. It's because when a person thrown out of their usual thoughts or behavior, they're left without a next step and are open to whatever comes their way. So make sure you write your letter as why you think that they haven't responded to you, but show them the exit ramp. It's okay to tell me no. If I don't hear from you within 72 hours, I'll assume there's no interest and I'll move on. And if they can't respond to you in 72 hours, there isn't a response anyway. So again, close the deal or close the file. You can always close the file this month, and a month from now decide, hey, I was going through all my old leads and I decided to open up the file again. Has anything changed? Sometimes I do a letter and interrupt them, hey, we met about a year ago. You didn't buy from me at that time, and I'm just curious, What did you buy? And are you still happy with it? And what you find is it's a pain question. You know, there's many times they might have gone somewhere else in the trades or whatever, or they went to a different realtor and they didn't get what they wanted, but they were embarrassed to call you out of the blue and say, "Hey, I didn't respond to you. I apologize. I didn't get what I wanted. I'm coming back to you now." So you give them the chance to open up the door by saying, "Hey, I decided to open up your file again. Is it worth having a conversation because you didn't get what you wanted anyway?" So ideally, those of you that are doing prospecting, those of you doing like any cold calling, if you think about it, every lead really in my world is what I call 3D. Again, pre-selected, preconditioned, and preheated. What I mean by that is every one of my leads is pre-selected, meaning I think that they could use my product or service. I'm not just doing blast emails to people that don't have a sales force or whatever. I'm trying to pre-select from all the different sources, whether it's going to the library, get a list of manufacturers. You know that they could use your product or service. Preconditioned, meaning they've already got something from me. Every one of my leads either gets an email blast, they get a letter from me, they get my newsletter, they get just an email saying, "Hey, go to my website," so that when I call somebody up, it's not like out of the blue. The pattern rep is, "Hey, John, it's Jane Doe. Does that name ring a bell?" That's more effective. "Hi, how are you today?" So every one of my leads is 3D, pre-selected, preconditioned, and preheated, meaning at the last email I send everybody is I typically make my phone calls on Thursday morning starting at 7:30. Please expect a phone call, a follow-up phone call from me on Thursday morning. If 7:30 is too early, please let me know. You'd be surprised how many people call you back. Couple reasons why I do that. One, it is a pattern interrupt because I'm telling them that I'm going to be calling and when, but it also holds me accountable for the right behavior because now I've sent out 20 letters this week, typically telling people I'm going to call you Thursday. So I block off Thursday morning to make my phone calls because I've told 20 people I will call you Thursday morning. So that's one of the reasons why I follow the 3D: pre-selected, preconditioned, and preheated is what I mean by that. So what happens is typically if I'm sending out 20 of these, I'm adding 20 people into my pipeline every week. I'm not getting a hold of every one of them. So right now I have over 100 and some names in my pipeline of people that have got something from me. They've got voicemail messages from me a couple of weeks in a row. And now after about 4 weeks of calling somebody, I'll sit there, "Hey, I've called you for, 4 times over the last month. Sounds like this isn't of interest for you. Please let me know and I'll take you out of my system." And I get a lot of responses that way. So I'm not wasting that time with people that aren't interested. Think about it this way. The average email open rate is 18%, with really a minuscule click-through of only 6.2%. So in other words, people aren't opening a majority of emails in their inboxes, but a pattern interrupt in your subject line can catch a prospect's eyes and get them to click on it, which already puts you ahead of all the other messages they're getting. So think about what kind of a pattern interrupt you can put in your subject line, like I did for this session. You probably can't make it today. You probably don't have any interest. That is different than everybody else, where they're using a bullet point in their subject line, like, "We've been in business 20 years. I'm sure we can help you." I'm sure some of you that are listening to me right now, either live or watching this on video, get frustrated when somebody calls you and says, "I'm sure we can help you." I'm sure you're just like, "Hey, you don't know anything about me. What do you mean that you're sure you can help me?" I don't really like when somebody tells me that, "Oh, I'm sure that we can help you." Um, so, even if it's simple as, "I don't know if we can help you, not sure if there's a fit," something like that, if we're just in the subject line, "I'm not sure if there's a fit." Now I've got to open that and figure out, what does it mean? A fit about what? Okay. So again, when the discussion isn't going the way you want, you can use a pattern interrupt to redirect the course. Something like, "This sounds really good, Wayne. I think we're going to wait until the first of the year." Now, what some people would do is try and load up with benefits and features and why you shouldn't wait, because we want to make the sale. So, we're selling for our reasons, not theirs. So we want to make the sale. So we're going to give them reasons why they shouldn't wait. All right. Pattern interrupt would be, that makes sense. Probably would make sense in my schedule. We've pushed it all the way up to the third quarter of next year. Now, if they got enough pain, they go, well, no, I don't want to do that. Well, yeah, but if you have an issue or challenge today and we can fix it today, I'm just curious, what's holding us back? Is it the money? Is there any way we can have a conversation about that? Or if the person wants to negotiate with you and says, well, I'll go with you if you give me a 10% discount. I appreciate that. Is there anything that's stopping us or preventing us from negotiating that number you came up with? Just kind of doing the opposite, interrupt the pattern of the traditional. What we like to say, people say to me, well, how do I know how to do this? Well, if your competition does it, stop doing it. If your competition responds a certain way, then you respond a different way. Just interrupt the pattern, which jolts them out of the program responses that they're used to. Now, remember, 60% of buyers, they really want to talk to a sales rep because they want to become an educated consumer. But again, they have patterns in their mind on how to prevent being sold or being closed. So you've got to interrupt that pattern to take them out of that situation where they're just saying things that just are patterns, but not typically true. So again, every salesperson has probably a unique list of tried and true sales tactics. And maybe you've used one of the two that we're going to use here in the following steps. But either way, they're worth testing out some of these to see what grabs people's attentions. So the first one is to speak first. This pattern interrupt technique is about being the first to talk. It's about being the first to ask a question that gets the conversation rolling. Just like it would be with a friend or family, but it's aimed at making that familiar, casual, and that excitement about talking with them. It sounds like this. And I'm not as happy with this first one, but it was in there anyway. Hey, Ava, how's your day shaping up for you? Or my favorites was like, hey, Ben, this is John from XYZ Company. You're probably having a pretty busy morning. One of the other pattern interrupts I do if I ever get a hold of a gatekeeper. What I mean by that is a switchboard operator, an executive assistant. And I'll sit there and say, hey, Mark's probably on the golf course, right? It's a beautiful day out here right now. He's probably not in the office, is he? And that breaks their pattern. No, he's in, because they don't know who it is. So they're afraid to say, no, he's out on the golf. No, he's in right now. Great. It interrupts the pattern. Or, hey, Elizabeth, I'm on my speakerphone in my car. Can you hear me? That's the speak first when they answer, because now that throws them out of the, that sales jar. Hi, how are you today? Or, Bill, it's snowing like crazy here. Is it snowing there yet? It just changes the pattern by being the first to speak. That's the technique. What kind of a question can you ask that person in the opening line? You can always go from there. Hey, Bill, is it snowing like? No, it's not snowing. Hey, Bill, I'm sorry. You probably weren't expecting my phone call. Can I take 13 seconds to tell you why I called? And it's just an odd number that they didn't understand. Hey, can I take 13 seconds to tell you why I called? Again, nobody wants to feel like they're wasting time. So you're really asking for permission to take the time it's going to take. So if some of you haven't heard my no pressure call, it will sound like this. The person answers the phone. I go, hey, Bob, it's Wayne Dean. I'm not sure if that rings a bell. Now, remember, they've received something from me already. So I don't care how they answer it. They've got an email or something from me already. Remember 3D, pre-selected, preconditioned, preheated. They've got something from me. So when I say, hey, it's Wayne Dean, I'm not sure if you're expecting my phone call. They go, oh, yeah, I saw some emails from you. You know what? You're probably swamped right now this morning. Can I take 30 seconds to tell you why I called, ask you a question, and then you decide if we'll go any further? Would that be fair, or does that make sense? Now, the worst case I ever had was somebody said to me, okay, 29, 28, started counting backwards from 30. But typically that's taking them out of the traditional pattern of a sales call. Hi, it's Wayne Dean, just like, hey, it's James Bond. Not sure if that rings a bell. You know what? It doesn't matter if it does or not. I've sent you stuff. You probably didn't have time to open it. As long as I got you on the phone, does it make sense? We have a conversation right now. I'm going to ask you a couple questions, then you decide if you go any further. When they say, well, yeah, what do you got? Remember, I'm going to give 3 pain points. Typically, I work with successful people who sales is going great. They just want to reward their salespeople with some additional training to make their job easier. Sometimes I work with people who sales managers have to work with, you know, 6 different selling systems because they got 6 salespeople and they're all doing it differently and they want a uniform selling system. And sometimes I work with people, sales are great. They just need some management and customer service help. Can I ask you a question? Any of those 3 resonate with you? And I'll get, yeah, on 1, 2, no, and I'll say, even if they say, "No, none of those are our problems." So, any reason you would engage with a business and sales consultant? Is there any challenges or issues you're running into that we should have a conversation about? Again, you wanna sound like, "I'm not sure, I'm confused, help me understand." And that's my no pressure script. And again, I'll help anybody with that is doing any prospecting. I'll help you write your no pressure script and help you come up with the 3 pain points. And if you think about what we've done, we've just done time, objective, and outcome. We've done how much time can I have? The objective, do you have these issues? And the outcome would be, would it make sense for us to have a conversation to talk about these? All right. And if you're further along in the conversation, the prospect says they don't have the time to talk. Again, you can use this technique to set up another call. You know what? This call came out of the blue. You weren't sitting there in your office hoping a salesperson would call you. I appreciate that. Hey, why don't you take a peek at your calendar next week? Pick a day next week other than Monday that would make sense for you to invite me to call you back where we can have a dedicated conversation to what this might be for. Okay. It gives you the opportunity to break the pattern again of a typical salesperson. Hi, how are you? You know how salespeople get into that rhythm. Hi, how are you? Do they really care? That's why I don't like that first one about Ava. How's your day really shaping up? Uh, Typically, most people aren't asking you for that reason. They really care. So, again, these are the second of the 7 is the thief. You're taking time away from them. People cannot get mad at you for doing something they gave you permission to do. So make sure you ask permission. All right. Answer the question. Again, everyone wants to know, why they're speaking with you. What's in it for me is what they want to know. So break the pattern with some, hey, Zoe, I haven't emailed you and we've never spoken before, but can I share with you why we called today? This one is so refreshing because how many of you have gotten that email, text message? Hey, I've been trying to get a hold of you, or I called you, and hey, wait a second, I didn't get a voicemail, I didn't get an email, I didn't get. I hate when somebody does that because you're already lying to me now. Why should I trust you going any further? So be honest with them. I haven't emailed you. We haven't spoken before, or I have emailed you a bunch of times, but we've never spoken. Can I share with you why I'm calling? This can be even fine on a voicemail. If because most of the time you're going to get voicemail anyway, right? Because people are going to check their call ID or whatever. So your voicemail could even sound that way. Your voicemail can even be your no pressure. Hey, it's Wayne. Hope you don't mind. I'm going to leave a message. Probably not sure who I am, but caller ID probably didn't tell you. Can I take 30 seconds here on your voicemail? Tell you why I called. I'll ask you a question. And you can decide if you want to respond. Would that be fair? Does that make sense? Remember, Mama taught you to play fair. All right. So, would that be fair is what you're really asking people. Again, have you ever been frustrated that so much time is being taken up by organizational analytics when it's better spent on developing a strategy? So when you think about it, these might be the type of question you might ask them that is a pattern interrupt, and even leaving it on a voicemail so that there's reason for it. But I will tell you, do another training on how to get people to return voicemails. Remember in voicemails though, tell them when to call you back. The biggest problem with leaving a voicemail is, hi, it's Wayne. Sorry, Mr. Call, or sorry that you weren't there. Give me a call. Tell them exactly when. Hey, I'm going to be in my office on Thursday. I'm making my phone calls on Thursday. Please try me Thursday between 7:30 and 10. If you get voicemails because I'm on another call, but I'll see it on caller ID, I'll call you immediately back. You need to give people a time because a lot of people are going to get into we're going to play voicemail tag, and so they don't even bother returning call. When you leave a message for somebody, tell them when it's a good time for them to call you back, what your schedule is. The overshare, number 4, you probably already know a lot about the prospect before calling them. I obviously with LinkedIn and other types of social media. There's a lot we can find out about a person. So let them know that you've done your research on them. You can sit there and say things like on the voicemail or on the call to them. You mentioned how tough it is. I saw on your Facebook page, or I saw on your business on your website that it's tough for you guys to get in front of customers during the seminar that you're going to, or during the trade show. Can you tell me why you feel that way? I'd like to hear more about that. That shows that you are not just doing, dialing for dollars, that you're actually, have some interest in this person. You've done some research, but do a little bit of research so that when you're leaving your voicemail message for them, it interrupts the pattern that not some other salesperson did it. They didn't do that much research like you did. I saw on your company website, or I saw on your annual report that you guys are opening up a new office. Your plan is to open 5 new offices. I'm just curious, why 5? What's limiting you to 5? Is there any reason you're not looking at other regional areas than just the 5 that were mentioned on your annual report? Just something that gives them the idea that you've done some work on this person, and it really stands out from all the other salespeople. The shock and awe, again, not every industry or person is a fit for this technique. It's about finding something that really throws that prospect beyond the scope of normalcy or what they're really typically doing. So this one could be the worst case scenario, where maybe this person's already pushing back. They're a high D in the disc profile. The person's already not sounding friendly to you. So maybe it could be something like, hey, let's say this product costs $2 million. Would you still want to hear me out? It's just a number that's so outrageous that just breaks the pattern. Well, it better not cost $2 million. Well, what were you hoping it'd cost? Something like that just changes the pattern. Or even when someone picks up the phone, oh my God, wow, you picked up the phone. I wasn't expecting that. You made my day. Now I got to refocus. Something that just breaks the pattern of a typical sales call. All right. 6, we have one more after 7 is the objection. At least 50% of your prospects aren't a good fit for what it is that you sell. But some prospects are too quick to assume that. So when a prospect asks why they should buy from you, you can use this technique to address why your product or service might not be the right fit for them. Whereas somebody else would go for why it should be the fit. Oh, let me tell you why you should buy from me. It could be, well, I don't know if our product is right for you. Any questions you'd like to ask me? Remember, it's almost like hot potato, the technique that, I'm rubber, you're glue, anything you say bounces off me, sticks to you, where you're throwing it back in their lap. I don't know if our product is right for you. Why should I buy from you? I don't know if you should. But any questions you'd like to ask me to see if they were a good fit or why we wouldn't be? Or even like, what? I'm sure you're already being taken care of by your current provider. Your current provider probably is doing a great job. But if there was one thing you hope or wish that they would do better, you mind sharing with me what is the one thing that if they could do better, you wish they would? And then whatever it is, then is that a reason for us to have a further conversation? But again, it's okay to say no. If you don't think we could do a better job than the service you're currently using, I'm all right with a no. It's just, again, they weren't expecting that kind of response. And then a shared experience. I mean, again, it could be tough to sell people who've been in the industry for decades. They've been doing this for a long time. They've been doing it, by the way, business to business or whatever. So maybe you could say hey, from one market to another, from one consumer to another consumer. Yeah, I know better than anyone that selling can be a struggle. Help me understand. How are you selling your product or service? What do you do? Even when somebody says to you, we're probably not interested. Hey, I'm just curious, off the record, what do you teach your salespeople when they get a client that says, we're not interested? What do you hope your salespeople would say? You'd be shocked. I mean, I wish they'd say this. Well, would that have made any difference? Again, shared experience with them. What would you have your salespeople say if you got this same objection, whatever it is? I noticed that we both went to the SR conference last month. Again, you've done your research so that you can share an experience with that person. So those are 7 techniques on a pattern interrupt to do something different. But you can also add one more. This one is a really tough one, but it's really the dummy curve. And the reason I hesitate to put it on it, because we talked about it before, the dumber you act, the more people want to help you. And I'm not saying dumber you are about your product or service. I'm talking about the implementation of your product or service to solve this client's problem. So again, this relies on you to actually really be confused, to really be and say, I'm confused. You know, you might say, hey, when was the last time your customer service team performed better than the last time they performed? That was the best time. This gets the person thinking, what did he just say? You know, I'm a bit confused. Can you explain why that process is so important to you for your company? Again, this is the dummy curve that we talked about before. It's just delivered in a different manner. So last slide, in conclusion, and then I'll open it up for a lot of comments, questions. Hope we get some feedback. I know I've been doing all the talking, but you know, well, another way to look at pattern interrupt is to act like you're the one that's confused. All right. This allows the prospect to be the more okay, you know, the okay, not okay principle we're talking about. This mindset can shift to them to be more responsive to your ideas because you're acting a little bit confused and they want to help you out. So as you experiment to see which pattern interrupt techniques work best for you in your industry, remember to keep your tone in mind so you don't come across as condescending or pushy. You know, research who you're talking to and have a few techniques on hand. In time, you'll find the best pattern interrupt techniques that work for your toolkit. But just remember, going back to the first slide, all we're trying to do is jolt them out of the traditional patterns that sales prospects will fall into by doing something that they weren't expecting. All right. So let's open it up for you guys. Comments, questions, thoughts. Yeah, buts. I like those two. Yeah, but Wayne. Any?
I feel like I'm a professional gatekeeper. So I'm always answering the phone and getting these sales techniques used on me and the bad ones.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times it's just people looking for the owner, and I'm like, nope, he's not in, and click, they hang up on me, and all the other things. But the ones I'm actually most willing to talk to are the ones who are willing to talk to the gatekeeper themselves and use it naturally. So I've had a couple good conversations with people who have sent things before. So we're on Alignable. And so one person had reached out on Alignable first and then called. But because he reached out, I recognized his name. So I actually was willing to talk to him. And we had a really good 10-minute conversation about what he offers. It wasn't a good fit for us, but I actually know who he is and would be willing to reach out to him if we ever did need that again.
It's a
So
great point to bring up. Sometimes we make assumptions that, and we don't realize how much the gatekeeper can make a decision or how much influence they have. Remember, sales is about influencing people to a mutually benefit decision. So we have to treat the gatekeeper. Anthony Pinelli calls him Tommy. Vito is a very important top officer, but Tommy is the executive decision. Most executives surround themselves with 3 or 4 lieutenants, vice presidents that do this, this, and this, and these people are to funnel information to them for to make the ultimate decision, but they have a lot of influence. So treat that Tommy as if this person has the influence on your product or service. If you just assume that this person isn't the person that you need to talk to, you're going to insult them. So I appreciate that point, Deborah. You're absolutely right. So what's the best technique somebody's done to you that kept you on the phone?
It's probably that preheated, just having it being there, but also being honest and nurturing. So it's the, I know you're not expecting this call. Can I just take a few seconds? And I'm always like, sure, just tell me what you have. I'd rather get it out right away than so I can get to know faster.
Okay. So everybody, when you do this, I appreciate what you just said. Can I take a few seconds? And you're like, yeah, sure. What do you got? When you're delivering, remember what you should be doing is, hey, typically we work with successful companies who, because they don't really care about your bullet points. Well, we've been in business since 1944. We're the latest, greatest, most improved. What they care about is what problems have you solved that are similar that I share? And so that when you say, typically we work with companies that have this problem, this problem, this problem, and I'm not sure if those are the problems, any problems you have, but if any of those resonate with you, is that a reason for us to go any further with this conversation? And again, we're not trying to sell you right today. I'm not, but hey, it sound like this. Hey, Deborah, appreciate that. You have some interest. You weren't expecting my phone call. I'm sure you didn't want to devote a full, 15-minute conversation. Would it make sense that we devote time next week that I call you back and we have a conversation about this? We're too many people. Oh, I got somebody on the phone. I'm going to try and sell them. I'm going to try and get all the benefits and features, or, and even a personal appointment. You might not be ready when they're pushing you. Hey, can I come and see you on Thursday at 10 o'clock? We don't have enough information whether it makes sense for us to have a face-to-face. Would it make sense for us to have a further conversation over the phone? Then we could decide whether we should meet face-to-face. Would that make sense? And I hope this is doing exactly what you just said, nurturing. Yeah.
Well, and there's a fine line too, because I get the phone calls all the time that say, I want to set an appointment up with you for X day, but I already know I don't want it, or they're pushing for the appointment.
Mm-hmm.
But people don't want to be pushed into an appointment if they don't want one. And me, certainly, I don't want to waste my time if I already know that it's not something we're interested in. But there is one that I actually did make an appointment with, and it was a real estate company that wanted us to advertise in their booklet. And I'm trying to remember how he actually started off the conversation, but it was definitely different than what I had typically gotten. And so it was more of, and it feels like it was the type of thing where it felt out what our needs were, or if they could provide a service that would be helpful to us first before they said, here, let's make an appointment.
And while we all are, when we're doing prospecting, we'd like to either have a phone or personal appointment. What we should be thinking about the first part of the conversation is just to find out if they have pain. That's why I say do 3 pain points. Typically work with people who have this problem. Not sure if those are you. Then you can decide, yeah, it sounds like they have pain. If they don't have any pain, why would you push for an appointment?
Mm-hmm.
Because most people, boy, once I get to see him, if I see him face to face, then I can close them. Again, salespeople are going to get this kind of like, get away from me if you do it that way. So those of you, and again, I don't think you're doing a whole lot of prospecting. You're doing a lot of your lead development where people are calling you, so you're not outgoing calls. But again, on those incoming calls, think about it this way: you get an incoming call. When that comes in, it's going to sound like this, Deborah. Hey, Deborah, appreciate you calling us. But when you made this phone call, when you finally did call us, how much time would you plan to spend on this call? Because were they spending 5 minutes, 15 minutes? I mean, let's have an agreement, just like for our contract, time, objective. How much time did both of you want to devote to this conversation? Would it make sense we spend 5 minutes just feeling each other out, and then if it makes sense to have a further conversation, we'll either decide go further with this call today or schedule another one? Would that be okay? Because inbound calls, I get a kick out of those. People go, hey, I'm just I saw you guys at the weekend home show and we're thinking about remodeling our home. Well, how much? I mean, that's an open-ended conversation. I mean, so why don't you just say to them, hey, how much time did you plan to spend for this phone call? I mean, what were you hoping? This will be a great phone call of what in the next 5 minutes, what do you need out of this conversation? Or say, boy, I'm glad I called Deborah. That's okay. Anybody else got a comment, question?
I had something, it's kind of different. I just got back from a conference and I had a conversation with a lady and her husband over the phone. She was in person and he was on the phone, and they wanted to redo their website. And the more I was talking to her, the more I was getting red flags, and she was going to be one of those really client nightmares, high maintenance. And I was like, I just didn't necessarily want to work with her, but I still went through and, they wanted me to get an estimate to them and, to see if they wanted to use my conference discount. And I sent them the estimate, and then they had all these questions about all these little particulars, and so red flag, red flag, red flag. So finally it gets to be the end of the conference and I email her and I tell her that, I'm going to be here until 2:00 today. If you're interested in getting the conference discount with the 20% off for the year, that's when I'm be here. Otherwise, you get a 10% discount for being this member of this group. And then a day or it must have been 2 days, and I get an email back from her saying that they decided not to move forward with me, which in my mind, I'm like, thank God, because I really didn't want to work with her. But at the same time, I'm wondering how I can approach finding out why they didn't want to move forward with me so I can learn about what I said to her or what happened, that because they were saying before I gave them my estimate and stuff, they were like, oh yeah, I think we want to go with you and da 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 da. But so I don't know if unconsciously I upped my estimate just so they would think it was too expensive. I don't know exactly what happened, but I want to find out, and I'm wondering how I go about contacting her about the
And
reason.
why do you want to find out?
So that I don't make that mistake again. If I'm actually, if it turns out to be a customer I do want to work with and they say no,
Okay.
what was it that happened that changed their mind from before and after getting the estimate? Was it the estimate itself? Was it something we talked about that they just decided,
Well,
is there a way to find out?
yeah, I've got a couple, but before I answer, I'm just curious if anybody else has an immediate response or thoughts that you'd like to share with Janelle. Anybody else thinking what came to mind as far as what you would have done? Nobody? All right. Well, if you think, I'll jump in there. So Ben, you think about something? What would you add or?
Well, if you're not interested in buying in the first place, there's a different way of like letting go, so you don't put all the time and effort even into doing the proposal.
I wasn't sure I heard that. It cut out. Make it state again.
If it's not a prospect in the beginning, you don't put the energy into even going all the way through to the level that you have.
Janelle, she said, if she's not a prospect, just don't go in. Why did you do the quote?
Well, I mean, she was a prospect and I would have worked with her if they would have accepted the estimate. It was just one of those people where
Okay.
I could just tell that it was going to be a hard client. And, and like I said, I would have worked with them if they wanted to go through with it, but I was just relieved when they said no. But
So
now I'm
remember,
kind of
where were
curious.
they in their system? Remember the buyer system? Where was she in her system?
For the pain.
No, the buyer system. Buyers, first thing buyers do is they mislead. Second base, they
Well, no,
steal.
I mean, well,
She wanted to be an educated consumer. She was using you to become educated.
well, so the scenario was she was very frustrated with her website, the people that were running her website. It took them over a year to get her a website in the first place, other than just a splash page. And then when she got the website, they're not responsive to do changes. And, so that was kind of her pain point. But then, she was like all into, do we have control? Do we own this? And can we make our own changes? And I mean, she was like this control freak. That's what she was kind of telling me. And so, that's what this other company, they're not allowing her, if she says they want to go somewhere else, they lose everything. They'll just shut down her website and she doesn't get to take anything with her. And so I was talking to her about that, and she, and then she was like, well, I don't know if my husband is going to want to do this. And
So
I don't know anything about websites and I don't know anything about technology. And so I'm trying to give her answers that I have to.
well, staying with today's training, pattern interrupts could have got you more information. But yeah, well, you spent a year with these guys already. Why wouldn't you go any further? Why wouldn't you continue with them? Why would you even look at getting enough? You've invested time, money, and effort already. I'm confused. Why would you even look at another vendor to provide a website for you. Now she's got to say, oh, I'm done with them. I'm done with them. Yeah. But what were you hoping I could do? And again, I'm getting again, if you feel it, say it as another rule, but say it nurturingly. I'm getting the feeling that what's really going on here is that you're just still doing a lot of fact finding, that you're trying to become an educated consumer, which really makes sense. But would it be fair to say you're probably not at the point you're ready to go forward with me? Would that be fair to say?
But she kind of made the comment that they were ready to.
Yeah, but
So
I get the
now-
feeling if I had the contract right now, you'd hesitate to sign it. Why am I feeling that way?
Well, they did. I mean,
They signed the contract?
they did not sign the contract. And then, 2 days
I'm
after,
saying, you get to say that. I'm getting the feeling you wouldn't sign the contract right now. Why am I feeling that way?
okay. But
Do the
now that I
opposite-
know
again,
that they
stop-
didn't,
stay in that mode. Just do the opposite of what that you would have said. It's it's just the whole idea is if everything I've done in life has been wrong, then the opposite would have been right. So do the opposite of what they'd expect you to do, because I think if you remember where she's just trying to become an educated consumer, and
Mhm.
she's better at her system than sometimes we are at ours. So she's acting dumb. I don't know anything about websites. Well, certainly you do. I'm getting the feeling you probably know a little bit more than what you're leaning on to. It's all a negotiation play. That the idea is that if she can sound uneducated, you're going to educate her and give up free consulting and give up free information. The
Okay.
idea is if you pull back, especially if you're not worried about getting the sale, if all of a sudden I'm getting the feeling, and you don't want to say no right away, because then you don't want that reputation to get out that she tells other people. So I can appreciate that you want, but again, the whole idea of today's training is what could you have done that would have interrupted and taken her out of that pattern? And
Mhm.
the idea is, remember, when they don't feel that they're going to be able to steal all your free consulting, they stop doing that kind of thing. So when you pull it away from her, sounds like there's probably not going to be a fit. Sounds like you've already done so much work that what I probably offer, I'm just confused. Why would you spend more money with me instead of just trying to, take the current vendor you've been working with and try and refine it and get it done? Is that a possibility? Are you definitely done 100% with these guys? I'm getting the feeling that even if that was true, I might not be your first choice. Why am I feeling that way? Again, never ask them to justify their feelings. Ask them to justify yours. I'm getting
Okay.
the feeling that even if you decided not to go with your past vendor, you're so frustrated with them, you're not going to go with them. But I'm getting the feeling I wouldn't be your first choice, that you're still shopping, you're still looking. Why am I feeling that way? Now she has to defend her position. No,
Okay.
I really want to go with you. Yeah, but yeah. And again, you keep pulling it away. People want what they can't have. So when she thinks she's not going to get your stuff, but as long as she thinks she's going to get free consulting, she'll keep acting to get free consulting. Everybody on this call, I'm sure, has been in that situation where the buyer has been better at their system than we are at ours, and they're good at getting all your free consulting, and then at the end say, "We'd like to think it over." And you thought, God, I was getting all these wonderful buying signals. I got all this stuff, and their whole system was just to try and get as much. And again, don't blame them. Their job is to get the best deal they can for them and their family and their business. So I appreciate it. Your job is to do a pat and interrupt that stops them from treating you like every other salesperson. I get a kick out of that where people come back. I get frustrated. They treated me like every other salesperson. If you look, act, and sound like every other salesperson, they'll treat you like every other salesperson. Mark agrees with that one. I see. Yeah. Help, Janelle? Doesn't help?
No, that was good. I'm just trying to figure out, now that I know that they are not moving forward with me, is there a particular question that I can email her about why they decided not to go
And
with?
you know that the file is being closed. They're done. They're not going to
Yeah.
go with.
Right.
Again, that's what I'd send out. Hey, I'm going to close your file, but before I do, just curious, so so I don't make the mistake again. You mind sharing with me what I could have done differently?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else? Hi, Nancy.
Sorry about being disruptive. One of the things I've learned through real estate is when you just hold on to a bad client, they just drain you, they take everything from you. The sooner you cut it, it gets replaced by at least 2 or 3 good pieces of business. And we're not meant to be with everybody. There's a lot of people that we're not right for. We want to identify those people we want to work with that add value and accept the value that we give to each other.
So I appreciate that. What do you do then if you got somebody that's just eating up your time, emotional energy, time? How do you dismiss them?
I say, in talking to you, I don't
Give them
think
the
I'm the
bow.
No, I try to protect her too, but sometimes I do, depending on who it is. Actually, people are shocked when they say, I'm interviewing you to see if I want to work with you just as much as you're interviewing me to see if we want to work together. And I think you should find somebody else. I can refer you to somebody if you would like, but usually they're so bad, I don't want to do that to the people I appreciate.
But that's never come back to then they say, oh, Nancy wasn't cooperative. It doesn't hurt you. Okay.
Oh, not at all.
All right.
I think they appreciate it, and I have a much better quality of life by doing that.
And again, that's why the upfront contract is so important that you set the tone up front that, hey, at any time there's not a fit, I'm okay with you telling me that. And are you okay with me telling you that?
Yeah.
That's why it's called an upfront contract. We're agreeing it up front so that later on during the process, you can, hey, remember when we said at the beginning, we both agreed that there's not a fit, and I'm getting the feeling I'm probably not the best realtor for you.
Correct.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you.
It took a while. I had to build up the business a little bit first.
But well, remember, every once in a while I interject some of these rules. And again, the rule is people can't get mad at you for doing something they gave you permission to do. So if at the beginning, if you did a strong upfront contract, time objective, their agenda, your agenda, likely outcome, then later on throughout the presentation, they can't get mad at you for if you decide to end the relationship because they are eating up your emotional time and energy. Boy, I want to see 12 more houses this weekend, again, and that they don't qualify. Yeah.
Usually what I find is they're relieved too, because they didn't know how to get out.
They didn't know. Yeah. And when you show them where the exit ramp is, people fall in love with you. Yeah, I agree. Makes sense. All right. Anybody else got anything they want to add before I let you off here? Mark, go ahead.
I think the only comment I would make to that is, just as Janelle was talking about how she felt like they were maybe not her most ideal client, the client's going to feel that same way about the salesperson. And so I do think it's you either together agree to work or you actually usually agree to not, right? Just like as we were just talking about it. And so I think while it's important to know why they didn't go the opposite direction, I think you could probably postulate that from your own feelings. But I think the real important ones to follow up on are the ones that you thought were a perfect fit and the sales call went perfect and you felt like that. Those are the ones that I would focus on trying to learn why it fell apart versus the ones that I'm relieved went away. I mean, if I'm trying to, itemize my time better, that's the ones I'm going to be worried about. So
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say that
I didn't want them anyway.
Yeah, you want to learn and you want to be a people pleaser, but I do think they're probably not going to tell you the true reason why they didn't use you anyway. So I don't know if the feedback would be, worth your effort to get it. So
what's the most important word in sales?
No.
Next.
No. Next. Yep.
Yeah. Next. Move on. Don't waste emotional energy and time as Val was saying. I mean, Nancy was saying. Kendra, anything from you or Ben, your group, anybody else? Okay. All right. So again, I'll send you this PowerPoint. So if you don't remember the 8 techniques I gave you, so you can revert back to them, but try and just interrupt the pattern. But no matter how you do it nurturingly, and it'll jolt them out of their traditional responses is what we're trying to do. If anybody wants help that does do cold calling, wants help with a no pressure script, I'll be glad to work with you on that. Or if anybody needs to figure out how to come up with your different pattern interrupts for certain situations, you have any specific situations where somebody isn't responding to you, and at least you'd rather get a no, I'll help you with that letter, the go for no email letter. One quick story. I had a client in Madison, Wisconsin that training 30 engineers. And when I brought up this technique to these engineers about the go for the no letter about, hey, there must be a reason you haven't responded to me. 1, I haven't shown you how I can save you money at a price you can afford. 2, this has just not been a priority. 3, you've already went with somebody else. Could you let me know? I had one guy that just, and one of the techniques I used to tell people, and I don't do it anymore because it just made some people, I said, send them a fax. And people, well, what do you mean a fax? Well, some offices, people, well, I got a business card and it's still got faxes numbers on it. So if I send them an email, what's the open rate? 18%, maybe even 2% click through. If I mail them something, maybe they might see it. But if I fax it to them, it's going to go on the desk right away. Somebody's going to, what the hell is that ringing over there? And I haven't heard that thing ring for a while. So I actually taught these engineers this at ACS is the company, ACS. I said, send them a good hearted fax. And I got pushback. Oh my God, this is terrible. And in the back of the room, there's 30 people. In the back of the room was Scott, the sales manager. And I said, Scott, you want to tell him? And Scott said, shut up, it works. Because I did it to him. Because I met with him, talked about that. He didn't, and he sent me back. I should go find the email. He sent me back a little bit of A, some of D, none of C. Right. And so it was a great example of it does work when you send somebody should I close the deal or close the file? So if anybody wants help with that, if there's anybody you just haven't gotten, you've spent a lot of time and effort doing a proposal and presentation to somebody, and you didn't do a very good job on the close. So it was left as the think it over, and now they're not responding to you, and you want some help on how to get that person to respond. Again, even if it's a no, but at least you know whether to move forward or not, and you know why. I'll be glad to work with you on that separately. So give me a holler. Okay. All right. Again, next time, same time next week, next Wednesday. I will see you guys then. Call me if you need me.